morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I am here with Eitan, and we are discussing this week's energy, which is all about real freedom. I think many of us are focused on this idea of freedom in light of the different things that are happening around the world, but specifically this week and this month present us with a specific opportunity to face the barriers between us and living a truly free life. But we also have to understand what freedom really is, and hopefully finish this week's episode with some practical steps we can take to identify what's keeping us locked in and stuck, and to really begin that journey toward real freedom this week. Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where we provide our listeners with the most practical and powerful tools to navigate the coming 7 days from the wisdom and tools of Kabbalah. And through sharing these ancient teachings and secrets, every episode ends up revealing wisdom and tools that you can use any week of any year of your life. And because this week we're also beginning the month of Aquarius, if you're an Aquarian or you know an Aquarius, you're close with one, you know that they are very much about expansion, not even thinking outside the box. For them, there is no box. There is a creativity, a almost unpredictability that comes with being close with them, surprises all the time. And the work for all of us becomes their work this month, as it does every year. Every month, when the month shifts, we learn a little bit about the tendencies of those individuals so that we can understand the influences that we're going to face this month. And it's all very much in line with this week's energy as well. So, Eitan, it's great to have you back. Where should we begin our conversation today?
I feel that let's really discuss first illusionary freedom, temporary freedom versus lasting freedom in every area in our life. It can be in relationship, it can be the business, it can be between me and myself. And then we'll connect it to the whole idea that of this portion, which is the last 3 plagues out of the 10th plagues that happen this weekly portion, which the whole idea of freedom from bondage, freedom from Egypt, and we know Kabbalistically, Egypt represents all aspects of limitation, and more so internal limitation. So let's first discuss examples from life of true freedom or versus temporary freedom or illusionary freedom. So where would you start?
Well, I've been aware these last few weeks of different situations different people have brought to my attention where there is a need to maintain an image, a perception. I'm the strong one. I'm the smart one. I'm the reliable one. And it's an interesting theme. I think it's more connected to the idea of Capricorn, that kind of holding on to what's familiar, what's predictable, what's consistent, and seeing how the universe is constantly shaking us up to release those titles, those perceptions, even those, like my own image in the friendships that I have, in the circles that I am in, that I need to appear or show up in a certain way. And there's a situation in my life that's forcing me to not be that person or to not show up that way. And the theme that I noticed in those conversations is almost like I work for those titles. I'm enslaved to those titles, that image, that perception. If I'm not there for people the way I've always been, who am I? My world crumbles. And at the same time, helping those individuals see there's a pattern of the universe trying to release them from that perception, from that image, from that title that they're holding so tightly to. So I think a lot of that internal awareness of, what am I clinging to? What am I what false, like you said, illusionary walls or structures in my life have I created that are not actually bringing me fulfillment, joy, flow, creativity, a good feeling, but I simply I'm comfortable with it because it's what I know, it's what I'm known for, it's what works for me. And I feel like that's a big, if we're honest with ourselves, that's a big challenge for a lot of people, especially when you're smart, you're successful, you're good at what you do, you have a long history of being, in a certain position, and it's very hard to release yourself from maintaining that stability, predictability, and image.
So what you're saying, illusionary freedom is when maybe things goes my way and I'm relieved that I'm not dealing with certain challenge, with certain confrontation, with certain fear. And now it's okay. It works for me because I'm used to it. I got the respect, I got the temporary recognition. But if I'm really honest within myself, deep inside, I'm afraid to expose the truth. I'm afraid to take the relationship to the next level. I'm afraid to face my own fear. I'm afraid to be someone that I'm supposed to be, but I'm not going to satisfy other people. So, actually, am I really free? I'm free from temporary stress, but I'm not really free. And whenever internally I'm not really freed for my own egos, for my own fear, for my own greater potential, for my own inner truth that I know what I can be, for my own connection to the Creator, which is regardless what people think, whenever I know deep inside I'm not really free, I'm too attached, dependent on external circumstances, on the past behavior, of potential pain that I'm gonna have, it's just matter of time that that lack of internal freedom will manifest itself at some level of chaos. I can tell you that I experienced this week between two people an argument, a major argument that brought about a lot of things in the past and a lot of issues. And I had a choice. One choice is let's just get rid of the problem. Let's just go back to peace. Let's just please each other that we are no longer in this harsh, judgmental, negative reality. Make things better. And that's sometimes how we look at challenges. Going through a challenge, let's overcome the challenge. Even a lot of people trying to use spiritual tool just to ease the temporary pain, to get rid of the challenge, to make it good between us. If it's a couple, if it's spouses, if it's anything. But there in the deeper consciousness, let's grow. Let's really bring everything out. Let's learn the lessons between us that both of us needs to change. I need to change. You need to change. If not, I'm not really working towards true freedom. That's the reason. In this portion, there's a powerful phrase. The Creator telling Moses, you want real freedom? You want the Israelites really to leave Egypt? We're not talking about the external Egypt. The word Egypt means in Hebrew limitations. You want real freedom. You want real connection with the Creator. You want really that everyone will be able to express unconditional love. Everybody will feel that they have limitless energy with them. They have to face the internal barrier. And that's the reason the Creator is telling Moses, Bo el Paro, come to Pharaoh. What does Pharaoh represent? Your worst fears, not the external Pharaoh, the internal Pharaoh. He didn't tell him, go to Pharaoh. He said, come to Pharaoh, come. Your worst fears are next to me, the Creator telling Moses. I'm hiding behind or within your worst fear. As long as you're running away from facing your fear, for facing hard conversation, for facing potential change, for facing being vulnerable, for facing taking a commitment. In each one of us, according to our tikkun of our own fear. If you're running away from facing the deep internal fear, and sometimes we need to truly meditate on it and truly be aligned. What is deeply I'm truly afraid of? I'll start a process. I know I'm driven by truth, but it might go not according to what I'm expecting. I'm too afraid. So let me just shove it. Let me not deal with this. The Creator told you want real freedom? Face your worst fear. The fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear of being confined, the fear of the temporary pain of being judged, the fear of being a beginner, the fear of not being appreciated, the fear of feeling I'm less than, which is a temporary process. No, I want freedom. I don't want to face any of this fear. That's the opposite path to freedom. The amount of real freedom, not escaping to feel free for a moment. When we create permanent change in one area in our life, that's energy of freedom. So that's the question. Do I want long-term happiness, freedom, inner strength, or I just want a relief, which feels like freedom for a second, but let's ask yourself a question. Is it a real freedom?
I think the challenge that a lot of us face around doing the work that you're talking about, facing the fears, not running from the vulnerability, the discomfort, the fear of the unknown, is that we don't even know ourselves. Like we've been so busy avoiding that pain or that vulnerability that we don't even know what we're running from. I had a meeting with someone a couple weeks ago that the version of her 20 years ago is still running the show. The things that she wanted, she's still pushing toward, even though she doesn't really want them anymore. Her priorities have changed. She's a different person. She back then she was single and working towards her degree, and now she has the degree. She's a professional. She has 3 kids. She has to like that. I want to call it conflict even between the inner me and the outer me is really where I think the temptation to avoid comes from. Because if I deal with my true desires and working toward being more of a soulful person, a spiritual person, an expansive person, what about all the things I created around me when I was in a more limited space? I see it a lot of times with people in relationships when they're with a person and even though they're not, the relationship isn't, they know that it's not what it could be, what it's meant to be. They don't feel that they have someone to work with on it, but they also don't want to walk away from it. It's almost like this, the slavery ends up being to an older version of themselves, or I mean, a younger version, but a former version of themselves. And the fear of stepping into a more authentic reality. Like you said, I don't know how the conversation is going to turn out. I don't know how dealing with these challenges, these issues head on. Maybe we won't be together after that. Maybe I won't work here anymore. Maybe like being willing to make the light choice, right? Which may be uncomfortable in the moment, but in the long term is win-win for everyone. And I think the reason I'm bringing it up is because if that work that Eitan is talking about isn't so, I don't know what the fear is. I don't know what I'm avoiding. Ask yourself, where are you really just trying to, like, keep the boat floating? Where are you moving your wheels are spinning, but you're not going anywhere? Where in
By the
your
way, every area in our life that we are not energized and inspired, I'm stuck in what you are sharing, Elisheva. I'm stuck into the old self. I'm not willing to risk, to go deeper. I'm not listening to my inner voice. And I agree with you. I need to have awareness. That's part of our discussion. Knowing that inner freedom is the voice of our soul that knocking at our door. When it says in the Torah that God told Moses, come to Pharaoh, face your worst fears. It's what is God? It's our own deeper aspect of our soul, which is the limitless, the part of us that is totally free. Tell us, come closer. But you cannot avoid coming closer to true freedom. It means facing the worst bondage, the worst discomfort that sometimes we are aware, sometimes we are not aware. And the fact that I'm praying for that, asking for that, I'm bringing it closer. So I would say in every area that I feel unsatisfied, uninspired, lack of newness, lack of fire, is because I'm settling for less. And even though you would not notice a specific problem, but the problem is that you're not alive. The problem is we're not living our soul. We are confined by limited desires, by limited horizons, by limited fears, by small perception of how great my life, my light, my blessings, my accomplishment, my creativity, my energy can be. And we all have areas, as long as we're in this physical world, we all have areas that we actually can find deeper true freedom, because eventually the ultimate freedom is when I know that there's nothing in the outside that actually can cause me harm beside my fear of getting closer to my true essence, which is the light of the Creator, which is my soul. So, for example, Kabbalistically, we know in this portion of the week, when the Israelites realizing the external Pharaoh that was oppressing the Israelites and causing so much pain, it's not their problem. The lack of trust of the Creator, the lack of trust of their soul, the lack of believing in each other, the lack of unconditional love to each other, the lack of expressing the unlimited them, that what caused the external Pharaoh. What comes first? External challenges in our life. A fight between a husband and wife are there to help the husband and wife to get closer, to overcome some level of unconditional love, lack of trust, blame, lack of trust oneself, whatever it is. So the external is there just to wake us up, to become more courageous, to listen to our limitless self.
What about those situations where a person feels or experiences that they're blocked? Meaning a person is looking for their soulmate and it's not happening, or a couple is trying to start a family and no matter what they do, it's not happening, or a person is even financially trying to, I'm not talking about become a billionaire, just to make ends meet. And no matter what they do, it feels like they're locked in, that there is something preventing them from the expansion and the growth and the fulfillment you're talking about. It's not always it's not always between two people. So how do we use that same approach when it seems like the universe is preventing something? Or maybe according to my tikkun, it's not meant for me. I hear a lot of times people say, maybe this isn't meant for me. Maybe the creator doesn't want me to have this. Or maybe because of a past lifetime, this isn't going to happen for me. How do we reconcile what you're sharing with those kind of situations?
So, what I've learned from my experience and from my teachers, that never stop praying and asking and trying to manifest the blessings that part of being alive in this world we want to manifest, if it's kids, if it's family, if it's love. Nevertheless, when I'm too focused just on that, let me go to a Kabbalist and receive a praying and a blessing and let's create a miracle. I will miss the boat and I will be blind to see my life, because if you take one area in your life, aside from the area of pain, and you're saying, I'll work on improving that. I'll work on improving my relationship with my mom. I'll work in improving my relationship. I'm actually holding grudges. Because when you work in one area in your life that you're clear you can get deeper and limitless and more giving and less fearful and heal certain relationship, because any area, any specific area in my life as the DNA of all the areas in my life. So while I feel powerless in specific area, that I don't have the power, I don't have the control, absolutely, but find the areas that you can improve and understand that life is quantum. That one area as the DNA of all aspects of your life, in the same way that every cell of our body has the DNA of the entire body.
Beautiful. I think that message is something we all need to hear, regardless of whether we feel stuck or blocked, or maybe things are okay and we just want to take them to the next level, is that there is a interconnectedness in everything. Those compartments we experience in our lives are only our perception. But in terms of the spiritual realm, everything is one. And so when we work on something, right, I think we spoke about this even a few weeks ago, that working on the areas that we feel connection and flow can also give energy to the areas where we feel blocked and disconnected. And as always, Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can follow us on those platforms to receive more content to support you in living what we share on every episode. You can also visit weeklyenergyboost.com to search through our archives, send us a message, learn about the things we think are important for our listeners to know about, as well as click the donate button to support and be a part of making Weekly Energy Boost possible. But as always, sharing this episode is the greatest gift, and we thank you for doing that week after week. And we'll see you next time on the Weekly Energy Boost.